Hello, everyone. Welcome to a great little segment. We have our brewmaster, Levi Duncan, with Michael Waltrip Brewing Company here today to talk about the new famous Toastery Classic Cinnamon Roll Ale. Levi, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
So, what is Classic Cinnamon Roll Ale?
It's obviously an experience-based beer, so we wanted to make sure that people uh, associated it with the Toastery, associated it with a great pairing choice at the Toastery, and then also something to be adventurous about at the Toastery, right? Like intentionally, perceptibly sweet, but it's really not. There's actually not a lot of sugar left in it after the fermentation process. So there's a perception there. This is that olfactory again, right? We're digging back into the olfactory. You perceive sugar, you perceive sweetness, but it's really actually not that. It's built to be flavored. It's built to become our interpretation of classic cinnamon roll, right? So you want to taste that, you want to smell that, and then you want it also to be a complement to that, right? So if you had the cinnamon roll ale with a cinnamon roll, you would be pretty happy. But if you had a cinnamon roll ale with, a waffle and some bacon, you would also be like just as pleased, right? Because it's bringing in another complementary flavor. So the beer itself will call an amber ale. It's a little light color wise for amber ale, but the ingredients are intentionally malty, but not to get in the way of the cinnamon roll, to more mimic that flavor of the burnt sugar, the toasted, the super toasted edges of a cinnamon roll, the dark parts, to bring those flavors out in our attempt to kind of quantify this in a beer. So
That actually kind of leads into the next question. What does it taste like? Does it taste sweet? Does it taste like a cinnamon roll? Does it taste like a beer?
right, it's got all of that. So it is certainly a beer. There's not a high alcohol content. So what we're not going to have is fusel alcohol. We're not going to have like a burning alcohol content. It certainly tastes like a beer, not high alcohol, and it's going to it tastes like we were talking about burnt sugar. Um, you're going to smell and taste bread from the bread yeast addition in the kettle, and you're going to get the perception of icing, right? So that's the other thing about a cinnamon roll. How do you add that? How do you get that flavor?
What's the story with the bread yeast that we've been hearing about?
So we use bread yeast as a kettle additive
Okay.
on the hot side of the brewing process. And so the idea behind that is that I learned from, the old brewers who taught me uh, when I was younger, um, how to impart flavors that produce reactions in people in their olfactory. So if you're saying you're going to make a beer that was cinnamon roll or fresh bread or a donut, whatever you were going to try and mimic in a beer, you would want to make sure that the bread's there, and that's a elusive thing to capture. And so lots and lots of old school brewers in that in that light would be adding bread yeast to the kettle. In the kettle, it boils, so it's not going to be part of the fermentation process. It's merely an additive, because when you're smelling bread, right? When you smell that fresh baked bread or what have you, you're smelling the quality of the yeast. You're smelling uh, the actual organism, right? So adding that to the kettle locks that flavor in, locks that aroma in, and then carries through to the finished beer. Uh, on the positive side, also, you add bread yeast to the beer. It adds a whole bunch of lipids to beer, and lipids are what the other yeast that we're actually going to ferment the beer with need to come out of dormancy,
Hmm.
so that they can start making beer. So it's kind of a double benefit, the character, but it also makes the yeast that's going to ferment the beer more healthy. So that's a double good thing there.
Yeah, and the one thing you bring up, like the taste, is I think there's a misconception, like the can when you look at the can, it's very bold. It's, very like it looks great. But I think a lot of people right away they see that dark brown and they think, oh, this is going to be like a porter or a dark beer. When really you kind of mentioned it's more of an amber. It's really more of a, well, I guess I'll let you describe it, but it's not really like a dark beer.
No, no, it's not dark. That's why it's kind of an amber ale, but it's really not dark enough to if someone was being strict with style guidelines, they wouldn't really consider it an amber ale because it's not quite malty enough. It's not quite dark enough, but it's certainly got those characters. Right? There's certainly malt character in it, a decent amount of malt character in it, but it's not dark. The label is more reflective of what you're going to smell, in my opinion. You see, the pile of cinnamon rolls, and you see the dark brown. That's the burnt sugar. That's the good old brown sugar stuff in there. That really, brown sugar and cinnamon, is kind of the star of the show there, and you really just want that part. You really don't, especially when you're a kid, you really don't want the bread part. You kind of want that middle part,
Yeah.
So it's kind of like trying to get you to taste the middle part for a whole beer.
Yeah. And, that brings up like, who is this beer for? That's the other thing is like, we kind of call it like this breakfast brunch inspired beer. I feel like the cop out is maybe it's for everyone, but who is really the beer, for?
I mean, I think it would have a pretty wide appeal. That's my hope, is it has a wide appeal. The idea is for it to be approachable by everyone. So that's why there's, low alcohol, high flavor, perceptible sweetness to mimic the cinnamon roll. That's the idea.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I go back to when you mentioned if you had a cinnamon roll that it would pair good with the cinnamon roll beer. But even if you had bacon and eggs, I'm thinking like the food pyramid, like you got to have your bread as part of the meal, your five food groups.
Right. That's beer. Beer is liquid bread.
Yeah, we're thinking ahead, just
but I think it lends to a good time. It's the it can be the cool part about it is it can be the side note to a great time, or it can be the star of the show for having fun. And that's something that's cool. You can do with a beer that's like that. That's got a lot of appeal across the board. Yeah, so I hope everybody gives it a try. I hope all of our fans at Famous Toastery will certainly have an open mind, give it a whirl. I think they'll find that bare minimum they'll enjoy it. Best case scenario, they go like, hey, these guys know what they're doing, and they'll give our other beers a try. So.
perfect. Well, we'll close out here. Thanks again to Levi, the brewmaster at Michael Waltrip Brewing Company, Levi Duncan. Thanks for joining us. Talk about the newest release from man, I feel like we've had what 3 or 4 releases already, but the newest release from Michael Waltrip Brewing Company.
Right on. Thank you.
Perfect.